Yesterday, England went to the polls, primarily to elect local councillors, mayors, and a by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. And those results are being counted at the moment, and I'm going to talk all about what we can expect to see. But if you want the one-line summary, it is total reform victory. And that's in spite of the fact that there's been some allegations of fraud trying to work against reform getting their council seats. I'll come on to that a little bit later. But before I get into the main thrust of the video, I just want to give a small disclaimer of sorts. There are 1,600 council seats up for grabs in these elections. And as of right now, it's about 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. 421 of those council seats we know the results for. So we know about 25% of the picture. And I bring that up just so you know that when I'm talking about things and how this is going to affect the future of these political parties and their leaders, you know that I'm extrapolating that data and kind of just making some assumptions. Let's start with the people's favourite, the Reform Party. Sarah Pochin, the candidate for the Reform Party in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, well, she won. She is now their MP, so congratulations to her. It wasn't exactly a grand slam or a landslide victory. She won by literally 6 votes over her Labour competitor. But a win is a win, and that's all that matters. There are no prizes for second place in politics. So congratulations to Reform and congratulations to Sarah. If you watch her speech, by the way, her victory speech, it's a bit lackluster, but I think that's possibly because she's just exhausted from the campaign trail. What's more interesting is watching Keir Starmer's reaction to the loss. He was not happy. In fact, he said he was very disappointed, but he was more determined than ever to go further and faster.
But the message from these results, I think, is go further, go faster. That chimes with what I want to do. And that's what I take out of this. And I'm determined that we will go further and faster on the change that people want to see.
And there's a lot more good news for the Reform Party today, as I'm pretty sure right now they have won more council seats than every other party combined. An absolutely staggering figure when you realise that that includes Labour and the Tories, and yet somehow they only have 5 MPs because of our first past the post system. Crazy. Anyway, Andrea Jenkyns, she became the Reform Party Mayor of Lincolnshire, and I'm not really that surprised. I think Lincolnshire will become a reform stronghold. It's an area that hasn't been totally decimated by diversity. Boston, if I remember correctly, was the most Brexity place in the entire country, and so it's the kind of place you can win by just, well, being based. Take a listen to this.
That's where they should. And, well, illegal migrants, people come here illegally, they should be put in tents like they do in France.
People are seeking asylum should also be put in tents?
Well, I think genuine asylum seekers, like Ukraine, etc., that's a different matter.
As you heard there, Dame Andrea Jenkyns was saying, I would put illegal migrants in tents. And the people of Lincolnshire, they loved it. So congratulations to Dame Andrea Jenkyns. But not everything went Reform's way. Aaron Banks, big UKIP and Reform Party donor, he stood to be the mayor in the west of England. And unfortunately, he lost to Labour candidate Helen Godwin. So it's not a total Reform, absolute annihilation, but pretty close. Speaking of Labour, how exactly do you think they're doing? Well, as of right now, they've lost 60 of their 82 previously held seats. That means they're down 73%. Which is huge. And you have to remember, this is with Labour having cancelled a whole series of these local council elections, particularly in areas that they were kind of confident they were going to lose. So if they hadn't cancelled those elections, this picture might look even more bleak for them. Whew, wouldn't want to be in Labour headquarters today. So on the modest assumption that the Labour Party get absolutely decimated in these elections, which so far they are doing, what happens to Keir Starmer? That's what a lot of people are wondering. And I don't know the answer, but I'll give you my thoughts. And my thoughts are not that much. I think he's going to be desperate to cling on to power, and he does have a way to ease some of that pressure on himself. All he has to do is throw a few other people under the bus. And what I mean by that is he can have a cabinet reshuffle. He can get rid of some other people who are kind of unpopular, and that might alleviate some of the political pressure that he himself is facing. So who would that be? Well, let's start with Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband is not particularly popular. He's also representing and championing the net zero cause, which is the reason why your energy bills are so high. Get rid of Ed, and actually some people might quite like that, especially if it comes with tax reductions and lower energy bills, lower fuel bills. And yes, you have to reverse trend on some of the net zero stuff, but I don't think that's going to upset people too much at this point. Another one, Rachel Reeves. I mean, everyone knows that the economy is going down the drain right now, People don't really trust Rachel Reeves to run it, so get rid of her and put someone more competent in. And then David Lammy. Now, I am surprised that David Lammy has lasted this long as Foreign Secretary, given all of the things that he said about Donald Trump previously. But one thing that Keir Starmer could try and do is get rid of David Lammy, secure closer ties with America, and get a trade deal with them. Now, that would actually make him look quite good on the world stage, something that he obviously very much enjoys, and that might be a tactic that he adopts. There are other people he could get rid of that aren't particularly popular, Jess Phillips, Yvette Cooper. It's difficult. You don't want to get rid of your entire cabinet in one go, because then people won't really want to join your cabinet in the first place. But there's definitely a lot of people that he can get rid of. Now, what I've just said there, that these election results probably won't lead to Keir Starmer resigning, will no doubt upset some people. And I understand there are a lot of people who just want Keir Starmer to go at all costs. I get it. The guy is boring. He's process driven. He's got the charisma of a newt. He's a little bit evil. He could be replaced by a computer and I'm pretty sure nobody would even notice. I understand why people want him gone, but think about this. If Keir Starmer goes, who replaces him? Because the Labour Party wouldn't go with him, they would just have a leadership election. So who do you want to be the next Prime Minister from the Labour Party? Do you want David Lammy to be PM? Jess Phillips, Yvette Cooper, Ed Miliband? Look, as much as I don't like Keir Starmer, there are definitely options within the Labour Party who would be much worse. And those are the kinds of people who would throw their hat in the ring to become the next PM. You've got to be careful what you wish for sometimes, that's all I'm saying. Now, there's one other story that we have to talk about when it comes to the Labour Party, and it surrounds some potential electoral fraud in Rochdale. Now, before I get into this, I'm just going to warn you that my source for this is a post on X. And I wouldn't usually bring it up, except the person is known and there's quite a lot of details that go with it, and they claim to have a personal connection to the person who found this out. So let me just read exactly what that post says. Chaos tonight at the Kirkholt and Balderson by-election count as Billy Howarth, independent, caught the election staff putting several of his bundles of votes in the wrong pile, the Labour Party stack. 100 of independent William Howarth's votes, 4 times 25 stacks, were fiddled into the Labour Party pile in desperation by the election hosts, pictured, as Reform looked to win. Also 25 Conservative votes, 1 times 25 stacks, were also found in the Labour Party pile. That's no mistake, it's 5 mistakes, all in favour of Labour. This was witnessed by many of the candidates, current councillors, election agents and observers. Chaos erupted, the police moved in, votes were sheepishly put back in the right place and Reform were declared the winners. How many more elections have been rigged in this way in Rochdale and beyond? Look, like I said, I wouldn't usually bring this up just because it's only an X post, right? But when someone is going into that much detail and they're naming people like William Howarth, who I've never heard of, by the way, and they're saying that the police came in and got involved and chaos erupted, you start to think, well, that's actually quite easily verifiable. Did the police actually do that? What does William Howarth have to say about that? So I'm going to pay close attention to this and see if any news articles come out, because that is really, really bad. And what I'll say is that if it turns out that this is true and this did happen, those people need to be taken to court and punished as severely as possible. If you let these people get away with it once, they will think, well, we tried, it didn't work, but we also didn't get in any trouble, so they'll do it again and again and again, and it actually genuinely undermines our democracy. That is a true threat to our democracy. A lot of people throw that term around, threat to democracy. Well, having people rig your elections is exactly that. So I take this very, very, very seriously. We'll have to wait and see if more details come out about it. This brings me to what I think is actually the most interesting story coming out of these elections, give or take the obvious Reform landslide. And that's all about what happened to the Tories. They've lost hundreds of council seats. As of right now, they're down 70%. And it might get even worse. They might claw a few back. Who knows? But it's basically an absolute catastrophe for them. And I think that this will lead to change within the Conservative Party. It just has to. Kemi Badenoch isn't working. People don't really engage with her, they don't like her, they don't find her relatable. It was a terrible decision and I've said that all along. So what's going to happen? Well, Robert Jenrick, I am very confident, is going to be the Tory party leader prior to the next election. Unless he leaves the party, I'm almost certain of this. And you can see in some of the things that he's doing, he's well, I was going to say he's getting really interested in politics, but you know, he's an MP and has been for a while, so that makes sense. But what I mean is he's doing more work than other MPs, right? He's clearly upped his team and he's upped his output. They're forwarding a lot of bills, challenging Labour. He's going on GB News, Talk TV, doing all of these media appearances, and he's clearly gearing himself up to be the next leader of the party, and it's working. You know, I saw an internal poll which was put out to Tory party members, and it basically had Robert Jenrick all the way at the top with like a 72-point favourability rating, and then Kemi Badenoch somewhere near the middle to the bottom at 9 points. Even the Tory party members just want Robert Jenrick, which leads to a really interesting question. If that's how the Tory party members feel, how did they end up with Kemi Badenoch over Robert Jenrick? It's kind of insane, right? And I'll tell you what I think happened. I think Labour have kind of set what is ethically acceptable. And they did this all the way back when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. And so they said, you know, diversity is our strength and the Tories are racists and they're really bad. Now, the Tories, in a desperate bid to not be called racist by the Labour Party, people who actually hate the Tories anyway, did everything that they could to be as diverse as possible, right? So in the last decade, they've had 2 female leaders and 2 people of colour lead the party, including Kemi Badenoch right now, who is a migrant who grew up in Nigeria until she was 16 before she even came to the UK. The Tories did everything they could to please the standard that was set by Labour, that diversity is our strength and blah, blah, blah. But Labour don't even uphold that standard themselves. You know, all of their leaders have been straight white men. So it feels like Labour set a trap for the Tories. They said that the Tories were racist and that diversity is our strength and you're not diverse enough. So the Tories went, oh yeah, watch this. We'll be as diverse as humanly possible. And Labour just sat back and thought, yeah, great. That's not going to win over voters. We just know that it isn't. Still, the majority of people in this country are white British, right? And they're not going to engage with someone who grew up in Nigeria. It's just a hard reality, whether you like it or not. Anyway, I could talk about this all day, but I'm not going to. I want to get the video out as soon as possible so that it's actually informative to people. What I'll do, by the way, is I'll leave a link in the description to the BBC Live election tracker. And that way you can check the most up-to-date results. I'm pretty sure the trend will be exactly as I've described in this video. Reform will just keep winning more and more council seats. Maybe they'll win even 900 council seats out of 1,600, which is totally crazy. Labour and the Tories will keep getting decimated. The Liberal Democrats have actually done okay so far. They've done better than a lot of the other parties. Nothing like Reform, but they are actually gaining seats rather than losing them. So great, Ed Davey. I think he's a bit of a joke, but some people seem to like him. The Liberal Democrats are quite good at local politics, actually. So it's not all about Ed Davey in that case. The Liberal Democrats are pretty good at stuff like that. The Greens put forward some kind of weird Islamist character and he won, so that's strange. The Greens seem to do that a lot. They're not really bothered about green issues anymore. They just put forward Islamic characters and it's, yeah, kind of strange. It's all sort of social justice, Gaza, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get wrapped around all of that. Maybe I'll do another video about these results in the future. But for now, I just want to get something out there so people understand the picture and what's going on. And so on that note, I will leave you. Please do leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I will see you on the next one.